Good to have you both with us this morning.
Yep.
So President Joe Biden, we'll get to the latest on Fox in just a moment, major news there, but the president is preparing to formally announce that he is running for re-election next week. The president's team is planning to launch his 2024 campaign as early as Tuesday, according to three sources familiar with the plans. Tuesday is the anniversary of Biden's 2020 campaign announcement.
What do you think of that, Mika?
Well, I thought all along he would do it, and I think he has to do it, and I think that's how he feels.
Yeah, Gene Robinson, I've given up on guessing. I of course, taking the president at his word that he was thinking about moving forward. At the same time, I got good friends who have been very close to him for a very long time, who have been telling me all along they don't think he's going to do it. Yesterday, I got a call. It's so funny how this works. I got a call in the early afternoon from somebody really close going, I just don't think he's going to do it. And a couple of minutes later, we get this news from NBC, three sources saying he's going to launch next week. He loves to delay things, loves to wait to the last possible second to do things. Always has politically, but this looks like pretty solid sourcing right now.
Yeah, assuming the sourcing is as good as we think it is, he's in, and I'm not surprised. I mean, I took him at his word that this was his intention. I also took him at his word that he believes in fate. He wanted to just see how things were going to work out and whether he was going to run again. And I think he believes he's fated to run again. He looks at the Republican field. He sees Donald Trump ahead of that field. He sees Ron DeSantis sort of, it's too early to say he's flaming out, but he's not doing very well right now. And so if it looks pretty likely that Trump could be the nominee on the other side, I always thought that Biden would run if it looked like he was going to go up against Trump, because his whole reason for running the last time was to keep Donald Trump, to get him out of the White House, because he was such a danger to the country and the world. And he'll do it again. He'll do it again. Yeah, he knows he can beat him because he beat him. So,
and I think it's okay to say flaming out. What was the thing that they said about the rocket? The what?
A unscheduled disassembly.
Yeah. So Ron DeSantis' campaign right now is experiencing an unscheduled disassembly. So it is looking more and more likely that Donald Trump will be the nominee with, who knows, 2, 3, 4 indictments. But what's 2 or 3 indictments between Republican primary voters? Jonathan Lemire, you've obviously been on this story very closely. We've been talking. I got a chance to spend some time with the president on and off camera in Ireland, and I got the sense that he was actually leaning into it, a little more excited about it after Ireland. But again, questions still abound. What can you tell us?
No, you're right. There's been speculation from the beginning. The president, we should note, is 80 years old, and he would be 82 taking the oath of office again were he to win. And, he has said publicly, it's all along, it's been his intention to run. But privately, people close to him have, as you said, Joe, expressed some doubt that, the White House team, the campaign apparatus was forming. They were ready, put pieces in place for him to say the word go. He still hasn't yet, and I think that's what the word is here, and we're reporting the same. People close to him say this announcement could come as soon as next week. They are eyeing that Tuesday, which would be the 4-year anniversary of his successful presidential campaign launch, but nothing's official until the president says it is. Having said that, if we do anticipate that he is going to run, as you note, the looming danger that is Donald Trump on the Republican side of the field is what has been animating Biden all along. There's also a sense, if not me, who, in terms of other Democrats who could take on Trump. So right now, they're preparing to launch, and now we're just waiting for the final go from the president.
All right, we'll be following that. Now to the other big headline of the morning. We are hearing from the lead attorney in Smartmatic's $2.7 billion defamation suit against Fox News. The voting software company says it was grievously harmed by the false claims made on the network, accusing Smartmatic of flipping votes to Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Yesterday, the lawyer representing the company said evidence in the recently settled Dominion lawsuit could be used in its case.
In addition to that, what I think is really unique about the Smartmatic situation is the recklessness that was involved here, Jake. It's Smartmatic was in LA County only, and you can confirm that we are in LA County only by doing about a 1-minute Google search. But notwithstanding that, what Fox and the other defendants were doing was saying that we somehow masterminded an ability to rig a national election when we were only in one county. So that level of recklessness is something you don't normally see.
Don't you think it's important to make sure that those millions of Americans get the truth?
No, I'll say long haul. I want everybody to think of the long haul here. Smartmatic is in this case for the long haul. They are looking to take this case through trial. They are looking through the vindication of a jury verdict in their favor. They are in this for the long haul. In order for them to get back to where they were before this all started, where they can win the contracts that they're now losing, they need to get an apology. They need to get a full retraction because they're in that business for the long haul. They're not looking to get out of that business.
On Wednesday, Fox put out this statement on the Smartmatic lawsuit, claiming it will defend its case surrounding, quote, extremely newsworthy events. The network goes on to call Smartmatic's damages claims implausible and disconnected from reality. But, Joe, this is exactly what you pointed to when the settlement with Dominion came out. That could the evidence that came out, the damaging, humiliating evidence, right, that what was happening on the air was not what they were saying off the air, and that they were misleading their viewers, and they ended up paying for that. That all now rolls over and gets used as evidence for Smartmatic. That's not good news for Fox.
You've got two things. First of all, you got the public relations of it. And yeah, the texts are really bad PR-wise because you're basically letting viewers know that you're lying to them when you say that Donald Trump is this and that. He's horrible. He's a liar. He's a destructor. And also that the election claims are just purely bogus. Then you go onto the air and you lie to your viewers and tell them that the election was rigged. So that's a PR problem. It does have legal consequences. But what attaches to that and what we learned from the last trial, or at least the last settlement, and all of that discovery is the intent. The intent to do it with malice because they were losing viewership to Newsmax and AON. That's what's so devastating about all of the discovery. It basically proves the prima facie case. And so I'm not surprised that the lawyer is saying, we're taking this, Smartmatic, we're taking this all the way to the end. Yeah. And also something else that's very interesting that may be more troubling for Fox News. If you have a company like Smartmatic that is saying, we're not going to just get $1 billion or $2 billion and get out of this business. We're in this business to stay. We have to stay in this business. So we need an apology. And just for you all at home to know how badly these people's businesses have been challenged and some destroyed. I have friends who are election officials who run elections who say they get yelled at and accused of having Smartmatic machines. And they said, well, they're only in Los Angeles right now. Or Dominion, they have Dominion machines. And they're like, no, they do 4 counties over, but we don't. And they're getting screamed at. Every election official has been taken to task because they were in this conspiracy with Dominion. There is no way any elected official in America can have Dominion voting machines or Smartmatic voting machines unless this is adequately cleaned up. So when he says we have to take it all the way to trial, we have to get an apology, that makes complete sense if they want to stay in this business for the long run. And that's bad news, of course, for Fox News. Let's bring in, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And if you see this sort of tension between reporters asking lawyers questions like, why didn't you ask for apology? Look, there is frustration within the journalistic community about the way Fox handled itself. But the bigger question is the service to the viewers. And put all competition aside, Fox is a powerhouse. Millions of people watch Fox every day. Millions of people potentially watch only Fox.
Right.
And so the importance of that apology is so that the viewers get the correct information, that they're not being lied to.
Okay.
And
Well,
they're not promulgating the lies.
right. Well, you're concerned about that, and I understand that. A lot of people in the media
that would be the reason I would ask that question.
Concerned about that. However, the lawyers, they're interested in, I'm just explaining why there was an apology, representing their clients. And the clients are probably, their primary concern are making their investors whole. And if it was going to cost their investors $200 million to get an apology, that's not what they were in the business for. You know, that's why people write opinion, why they write editorials or talk on shows like this. Let's bring in right now NBC News legal analyst Andrew Weissman. Andrew, I've been absolutely stunned over the past couple of days the way Fox, and I'm not going to blame the lawyers because the lawyers do what the clients tell them to do, but the way that Fox has stumbled, they pay $787 million, and they still have another suit out. So all the things that they paid for, almost $800 million to make certain things go away, didn't go away, not going to go away. And in fact, Rupert Murdoch, the hosts, the discovery, all of that is still going to be out there if they don't now settle for probably even more money to Smartmatic. And they've got more. So I have no idea the logic of it all, to drag it all the way to the end after all the embarrassing discoveries out and then go ahead and pay almost $800 million. None of this makes any sense legally or business-wise. Can you give us some insight into why it happened that way?
So I think you're putting your finger on a real problem here, which is that logically you don't understand, and I still don't understand, and I don't think we've gotten answers to why Fox, if they was going to settle, didn't just pony up the money before all these incredibly damaging emails and texts that showed what people were privately thinking. The only thing I can think of is, sometimes denial is a big factor and people are thinking it won't be so bad. We have legal arguments. Maybe the judge will rule in ways that are favorable. And I think, that may be part of it. And that people really at Fox were thinking they were going to go to trial. They could drag this out. They could maybe take it to the Supreme Court. But I think maybe one of the key things is when the district judge said at trial, Dominion can call Rupert Murdoch to the stand, as well as all of the sort of key hosts. I think that may have been a bridge too far, where Rupert Murdoch said, you know what, I am not going to be disgraced like that and forced to make these statements under oath live, and we're gonna settle. But to be cynical about the big picture may be they pay a lot of money to Dominion, maybe to Smartmatic, but one, it seems to be tax deductible, so it's not quite as large as everyone thinks, and their business model still goes on. And as Mika said, they have a huge viewership. And the next time they promulgate the big lie, but they know not to denigrate a private company. And they can do exactly the same thing, but they won't be subject to a lawsuit.
Interesting. So, Andrew, in your latest piece for The Atlantic entitled "When the Media Bow to Trump," you co-write in part, quote, two of the top news stories in recent weeks, the Manhattan District Attorney's criminal indictment in the people of the state of New York versus Donald Trump, and the $750 million settlement in Dominion Voting Systems versus Fox News Network, may seem like independent affairs, but they are parts of one bigger story. That story is how former President Trump has been able to control what information is available to the public, as he has repeatedly done in an effort to aggrandize and cling to his own power. His willing helpers were media companies, but they were not acting as news organizations. When national media companies pollute the information environment in collusion with a political campaign, the question becomes whether American institutions and the legal system can adequately respond. The courts may hinder Trump or for that matter, any politician with autocratic leanings, from colluding with media companies. But the worrying messages to such politicians may be to avoid mischaracterizing or paying hush money altogether to avoid defaming a company with deep pockets when promulgating the next big lie. Bragg and Dominion may win their battles, but the electorate may lose the war.
Gene Robinson.
Well, that's a frightening prospect, Andrew. So how do we break this cycle? I mean, I know a lot of people in media who were appalled at what Fox did in defaming Dominion, and who were rooting for Fox to lose. At the same time, who worried that an adverse ruling to Fox, if they've gone to trial, might have an impact on libel law, might have an impact on the governing Supreme Court decision, Sullivan v. New York Times, that gives wide latitude to reputable news organizations, and that is kind of potentially a threat. Well, how do we break this cycle, and how should the media be thinking about this?
Great question. So I think the key word that you used, Eugene, is the word reputable. So if I were at a reputable news organization, I don't know that I'd be particularly worried about what I saw at the National Enquirer, which was completely colluding with the Trump campaign, or what we saw at Fox News. It's, if you talk to any reputable journalist, whether it's in television, whether it's in print media, this is so far beyond the pale in terms of what news is supposed to be. You're just not colluding with one political campaign. So I don't think that there's a real sort of slippery slope here where you see liability here. You have to worry about what's going to happen next. And this really goes back to a point that Joe made, which is that these are private parties that are suing. Their interest is not to get a public apology, to defend American democracy, or to protect the information flow. They're trying to get the damages to their client. And so that's where you really think the FEC, which did impose a small fine on the National Enquirer, needs to step in, and it can't be a small fine. You really need to be thinking about, okay, what is the business model for the National Enquirer? What is the business model for Fox News and the next media company that's going to pretend to be giving news, but is actually going to be promulgating lies? Is there going to be some regulatory damage that's going to deter that, so we don't have a repetition? Because it's really easy to just simply avoid denigrating a company so you won't get sued, but still promulgate a big lie. And so you need to have the government step in to have some kind of regulation of that kind of conduct.
So one of the loudest promoters of the big lie, MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, has been ordered to pay $5 million to a man who successfully debunked his claims of a stolen 2020 election. Yesterday, an arbitration panel unanimously ruled against Lindell, who issued what he called the Prove Mike Wrong Challenge.
That wasn't hard.
At a cyber symposium he hosted in 2021, Lindell promised to give millions to anyone who could prove his cyber data about the 2020 election was not valid. He was taken up on his offer by a software developer and Trump voter who says he was initially excited to see what evidence Lindell had found. But according to the man's attorney, quote, much to his chagrin, he found it wasn't 2020 election data. In a statement to NBC News, Lindell called the ruling a horrible, wrong decision.
That was unanimous and will be unanimous in any arbitration panel because, Jonathan Lemire, again, the facts are not there. Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump, the Kraken lady, they have all been lying through their teeth since November 2020. They keep promising facts. They never provide facts. None. all they can do is just push the big lie. Again, 63 federal judges, a lot of them appointed by Donald Trump, a lot of them Federalist Society judges, all said there were no examples of widespread voter fraud. Even in a concurring opinion in a Supreme Court case during that time, you had the two most conservative justices on the court, Thomas and Alito, saying, you know what, we ought to look into this one part of the Pennsylvania election. But of course, there wouldn't be enough votes to change the outcome of the election at all. Basically saying it's already set. Biden won. And yet, despite all of that, these people keep lying, keep making fools of themselves, and in the case of Fox, keep having to pay out hundreds of millions of dollars in damages.
Yeah, and as we've discussed on the show, and as I covered in my book, whether it was Rudy Giuliani or Sidney Powell, they'd say one thing on the courthouse steps and then something very different inside the courthouse itself, because they knew they didn't have the evidence to back it up. And we know Mike Lindell, he had free reign of the Oval Office in the weeks after the 2020 election, would bring conspiracy theories to Donald Trump's desk. I guess we know now why MyPillow is expanding into the slippers and so on. They've got to raise some money to pay out this $5 million. He's lucky that others didn't take him up on the same offer. So, Andrew, Lindell also is one of the individuals in which Dominion is suing. Rudy Giuliani on that list as well. We just saw what Dominion was able to get from Fox News. In your estimation, how worried should Lindell and those of his ilk be when Dominion turns their attention to them?
I think the individuals are even in worse shape than Fox, because they can't say they're just in the news organization or they were claiming a reporter's privilege. I think there's a reason that since Dominion has brought its suit, that you have not heard from Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Mike Lindell. There has been, they've been quite muted. And that's because their public statements have gotten them in, deservedly, a lot of hot water. Because if you defame a company and put out the big lie about a private company with deep pockets, they can sue you, which is exactly what's going on. I think that by all accounts, that is something that they really have to worry about. They don't have a lot of defenses. The real issue is just how much money they can pay, because some of them have more than others. But this is the kind of thing that can really bankrupt all of the individual defendants, and you can be sure that Dominion is going to be, pressing ahead hard with respect to each of them.
NBC News.
And they're going to be bankrupt. I mean, you look at Rudy Giuliani, you look at these other people. I see absolutely no way for them to avoid bankruptcy, because they just get caught in lie after lie after lie.
I just don't know why they would continue to participate when it was obvious, but there you go. That's why we're where we are. NBC News legal analyst Andrew Weissman, thank you very much for coming on the show on this Friday morning. We appreciate it. And still ahead on Morning Joe, Donald Trump remains the focus of criminal probes in New York, Fulton County, Georgia, Washington, D.C. Jackie.
Most accurate weather.
the screams begin.
Bringing you the most accurate weather.
We hide no more.